On this episode of Locked On Angels, it's FanMail Friday, and you wondered, like we wondered, what are the Halos supposed to do with Reid Detmers now? We're going to share our answers to that question and so much more. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube and leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. You can turn any TV into an Xbox. No console needed. Just head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more.
Happy Friday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, we're here talking Angels baseball 5 days a week, every single weekday, Monday through Friday. It's a Fan Mail Friday, and full disclosure, we are doing this before the Blue Jays game on Thursday night. If you're looking for a breakdown of that, Gavin Carlson has you covered on the postcast. He goes live with that after each and every game. And of course, you probably saw us tweeting along with what was going on in that game as well. You can always keep up with us on social media. Hey, listen, it's a Fan Mail Friday, and Mike, our inbox was flooded. Our mailbag was full of questions about what do we do about Reid Detmers? So tons of questions there, and I wanted to read 4 together because they all I wanted to shout everybody out, first of all, for sending in questions, and it's fun to hear your name on the podcast, but also they kind of all make the same points. So let me go to Nick Dane on Instagram. What will it take for the Angels to move on from Detmers, or at least Wash to not use him? Carlos 17 Vega on Instagram said, what should we do with Reid? Is he out of options? Dunskies on IG said, when does Detmers get let go? And then Zach Hansen on Instagram said, at what point do we DFA Reid Detmers, Michael?
Yeah, we don't need to DFA Reid Detmers because he does have 2 option years left, which means that he can be optioned up and down all season long, and then he can be optioned up and down next season as well. So 2 option years left means that they don't need to release him or DFA him. They can actually send him to the minor leagues like they did last season and the season before so that he can work on some things if necessary. Yeah,
and by the way, I think for clarity's sake here on Locked On Angels, we're going to start using that term option years over options, because there's a lot of confusion between does an option getting used mean he only can go up so many times and down so many times? Basically, you have the whole year in an option year to move somebody up and down. And since Reid has 2 left, they could use this one this year and also next year if they want to option him. So again, option years is kind of a better term to use. But when you hear people say he's got options, it's really option years, and you're allowed to move up and down for the full year.
So the question really is, what do you do with Detmers? Kickback Day on IG said, who would like to see Detmers move to AAA and take his place on the Major League roster? John, first, do you think that the Angels need to send Reid Detmers back down to AAA and have him be a bullpen guy or have him be a starter? Like, if you're Barry Enright, Perry Manassian, Ron Washington, what are you doing with this guy first before we talk about who should replace him?
That's the big question here is, what do we do with Reid Detmers? Mike, he's a starter. He's always been a starter. Right. They drafted him as a starter, and this bullpen experiment isn't working. Worth a shot, worth a try, right? And you started out the year with that being the option, and it's not working. Right. And it clearly isn't working. He only does well when he's in a low leverage situation. He can't handle the high leverage situations. We've seen that 3 times now with Reid Detmers. So he has to be worked out as a starter. The best place to do that is AAA and maybe even AA. I doubt that, but they would probably put him in AAA. And I know he was in AAA last year. But Mike, this is the issue with Reid Detmers. He's got really great pitching stuff. There's no question about that. But his execution and whatever's going on up here between the ears is just not there. I know that you see somebody like Griffin Canning go to the Mets, right? He's got that terrible fastball that we all called for. Everydayers called for it. You and I called for it. Angel fans called for it. Don't let him throw his terrible four-seam fastball. And what did the Mets do? They made him get rid of it, Mike. Mm-hmm. And that's why Griffin Canning is having the success that he's having so far. Now, his expected numbers, he's far outperforming them, so he will certainly regress towards the mean there. But his expected ERA isn't much more than a high 3. Like, he'll probably end up with like a 4-something ERA at the end of the year when all is said and done. But the Mets went, no, stop using that crappy fastball. And so I feel like this is far and away different than what would happen with Reid Detmers and even Patrick Sandoval when he gets healthy and starts pitching for the Red Sox. Their problems are mental. And I don't know what it is. Griffin Canning to me, I don't know about you, but Griffin Canning to me never had the mental issues. It was just the performance, really. And so when it comes to Detmers and somebody like Sandoval, they have got to get him right between the ears because the guy has no confidence at all. And then throwing him to the wolves to try to inspire some confidence like Ron Washington has been doing, that's just not working either, is it?
No. And that's why I think he does need to be a starter and needs to be stretched out to be a starter. Talking about what to do with him, though, and who you replace him with is a different conversation, right? Who replaces Detmers in the role that he's playing? John, I think the first option that the Angels should at least consider is Jack Kahanowitz. I think that they need to consider what they're going to do with him because Kahanowitz is great first time and sometimes second time through the order. It's the third time through the order where he's really struggled. But he's a guy who limits his pitch count. He's a guy who gets a lot of ground balls. And so he's perfect for a role of you're up by a lot or you're down by a lot and you need to eat up some innings. The thing that he's struggled with is his walks. And so if he can clean that up, he actually might be a really good guy as a long reliever for the Halos. I think the problem with Reid Detmers is they were like, well, he's not going to be a starter, at least for now, but we're going to keep him at the major league level. And we're going to have him be our Jaime Barria type of pitcher. We're going to have him be the guy that eats up some innings. But then they're bringing him in high leverage spots, which is not his gifting, which is not his skill set. He's somebody who typically walks the first batter that he faces. He's somebody who typically will give up a hit in that same inning as well. And that's not what you want from a high leverage guy. You want swing and miss stuff, which Reid has.
Yes.
But he gets a lot of swings and misses once he's warm. The other thing that I noticed about Reid, and I think it's because he's in the bullpen and he's not a starter, is John, he's only thrown, I believe it was his changeup. He's only thrown his changeup just once this season. He went from a 4-pitch pitcher, and I'm looking at the stats right now because I actually wrote it down. He went from a 4-pitch pitcher to a 3-pitch pitcher. Okay, so here's the stat. He's thrown his changeup just one time this year.
Yeah.
He's thrown a fastball, a slider, and a curveball. And really, the fastball is the thing that hitters are waiting for. In fact, they're batting .333 against his fastball this season. So that's, I think, what is the consequence of moving him to the bullpen and then not knowing what to do with him once you have him in the bullpen. So I think you got to stretch him out. And I think that you have to at least consider, do we move Kahanowitz over and have him play that role, have him be the 1-inning, 2-inning guy, and not come in high leverage situations? Or do you continue with him and then maybe pull someone up from the minor leagues? John, where do you land on how you replace Detmers on this roster right now?
I think you need to bring somebody up. I'm actually looking at, the slider is obviously his best pitch, Mike. It's the highest value pitch that he has. The curveball, he's sick with it too. And it's the 4-seam fastball. Even last year, that 4-seam fastball got hit around a ton. It has a -6 run value. This year it has a 0 run value. So it's been better, but it's also a smaller sample size, right? And so to me, like, the Angels don't play to these guys' strengths. And I forget where I saw it, but they I think it was on Twitter. And if you're an everydayer and you're watching and you said this, the problem with the Angels is that they try to raise the floor of this player by working out their worst attribute.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. You have to lean into their strengths. And for Detmers, it's the slider, it's the curveball, it's the breaking stuff. And of course, you need a fastball of some kind to play off of those pitches. But if I were to bring somebody up, it has to be a real reliever. And I know Hunter Strickland just signed. He would have to be added to the 40-man in order to come up and be on the 26-man. But Mike, Detmers is a starter. And so is Caden Dana. So is Sam Aldegheri. So is Chase Silseth. So is Victor Medeiros. And Victor Medeiros, by the way, performs a lot better when he's starting, when he has pitched as a starter in the minor leagues than when he's come up and been a reliever out of the bullpen. Yeah. And so having a starter in this bullpen seems to be the big issue. When we first started this season, we had Ian Anderson playing that Jaime Barria, Jose Suarez longman role. And I think we all assumed that once Ian Anderson was gone, Reid Detmers would take over that longman role, but he hasn't. And usually that longman role is reserved for somebody who's when we're way behind or way ahead. And they've still been using Detmers in high leverage. I love this right here. J. on Instagram said, Jose Suarez is better than Detmers. Changed my mind. I thought that was funny.
He's off the team.
He's off the team.
J. is off the team.
Oh, J. off the team with Suarez. But look, Detmers, it's all between the ears for me. Yeah. And the quality of his stuff is too good to give up on him, but they're just not handling him right. And that's what 4 years of Matt Wise and bringing Detmers up in 2021 will do to you. This is the problem with the lack of development, right? This is the problem with rushing a pitcher up way too fast in Reid Detmers. He was signed and drafted in 2020, up in 2021, right? And a part of this rotation in 2022 full time. Mrs. K. Holstein on Instagram said, it's time to trade Detmers. And she also suggested maybe Detmers and Adell go in a package. And she said, maybe to the Rays, who would you trade for? Again, I think you have to get something of value of Detmers because he's just too good pitching-wise, stuff-wise, to just let him go. Yeah. The Angels needed slugging, and they got Soler for Griffin Canning. So Canning can go off and be great with the Mets because we got something from him. And we got something that we desperately needed in slugging percentage from Jorge Soler. But like I said before, Canning didn't have the mental problems that Detmers and Patrick Sandoval have. So if Detmers were to go somebody else to somebody else and pitch somewhere else, they'd have to figure out these mental struggles too, because I think that's the biggest issue. Mike, in my opinion, if you do need to get something of value out of Reid Detmers, it really depends on where the value is. Is it with this team? Is it a minor leaguer that you can develop over a couple of years? Maybe you hit the reset button and get a starting pitcher kind of like Reid Detmers and let that kid develop while another team does fix Detmers. But again, I think between the years it's all mental. It's a mental hurdle. Detmers has no confidence. You mentioned it in the dugout last night. He's sitting there and he's kind of picking at his fingers. Like the guy's confidence has been completely shattered. Do you think so?
Yeah, he's not strong when it comes to knowing that he's going to go out there and dominate. He has no confidence in what he's throwing. And the fact that he's leaving out maybe one of his better pitches is evidence of that. It's also evidence of coaching, which this wasn't a question for FanMail Friday, but John, it makes sense why the Angels go after guys who are deep into the college season. They go after guys who have been developed for a while, because I think ideally the Angels are probably always going to be middle of the road when it comes to the rankings in the minor leagues. I think that's where they're always going to land because they don't have the best developmental system. Now you look at the guys who are being successful right now in the minor leagues, it's guys that came from other places. And I think that that's the key for the Angels. Yeah. If they're not going to be a team that's going to develop these guys, then they need to make wise, smart draft moves and wise, smart trades, which is why if they're out of this thing, they should trade Tyler Anderson and get some really good pieces back. And they should trade other pieces that are available if they're able to get some other really good pieces back, because they have shown that right now, three pitchers that you've mentioned, Sandoval, Canning, and Detmers, are guys that they just haven't been able to develop. They haven't been able to turn them into good pitchers. And it's all literally coming down to coaching for them. Now, the guys do have to perform, and I get that, but this is why our team, our favorite team, goes after dedicated veteran guys coming out of college, dedicated, developed guys in other minor league systems. And that might just need to be the approach for the next few years.
Yeah, they'll never have a high ranking because you get a high ranking based on prospect value. And a lot of highly touted prospects are high school kids. And the Angels have not gone after a lot of high school kids in the last couple of years. It's been all college players. And so the value comes from the potential of a high school kid, but they just haven't had the patience to develop because they're trying to fix the team at the major league level as fast as they can. And in some ways it's worked with like a Zach Neto, and in some ways it hasn't worked with like a Chase Silseth, right? I know he's had some injury setbacks, but you can see that. And I think Detmers is even part of that conversation as well. So all in all, what do we do with Detmers? Do we trade him? Do we DFA him? Do we get rid of him? They don't have to DFA. They could trade him, but you need to get something of value. But at the end of the day, they have to get him right in terms of confidence, in terms of how he performs on the mound, and lean into his strengths, because right now it doesn't seem like they're doing that. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, we answer your questions about the Angels hitting, and we wonder, where does Trout fit into this lineup once he gets back? We'll get into all of that coming right up.
All right, full disclosure, I am not a coffee drinker, but my wife is a coffee drinker. So when Trade Coffee reached out to sponsor Locked On Angels, my wife went, yes, please, because Trade is the #1 coffee destination in the United States. They deliver fresh, incredible coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. So whether you're into cold brew or you like pour over, they've got the roast that you're going to love. And Trade will match you with the perfect coffee. Just take their online quiz. You can literally finish it in under a minute, and Trade's going to send you the perfect match. So we filled out the quiz, John, and we got matched with Klatch Coffee House espresso. So my wife, just for the sake of this show, my wife made herself some espresso, had a drink this morning. And so I asked her, was it good? She didn't even use words, John. She just gave me this is so freaking good look. And I was like, yes, we've won. And she said afterwards, it wasn't just good. It was perfect. The coffee, it smelled fresh. It smelled amazing, tasted fresh. And it was the best coffee in our city. And and I know we were both raised in this city. There's not good coffee around here. So this was actually a gift to us. So right now, Trade is exclusively offering our customers 50% off your 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/LockedOnMLB. That's Trade, TRADE.com/LockedOnMLB for 50% off your first month trial.
And today's show is brought to you by our friends at Amazon Fire TV. It brings you endless entertainment with 4K streaming. You can watch more than 1 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and so much more. In addition, your Fire TV can also be an Xbox. Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to go. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller are required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd generation, and Fire TV Cube 3rd generation.
It's Fan Mail Friday on Locked On Angels, and Cameron Fee on YouTube asked this question. Want to know your thoughts on the right-handed heaviness of the Angels lineup and its contribution to the offensive struggles. So Shawnuel is the only starter that's a true lefty. Of the switch hitters, Rengifo is supposedly better from the right side, although Cameron says he stinks from both sides right now. And then Moncada is a little bit better from the left side for his career. There's nothing in the current Angels lineup that is going to prevent other teams from just rolling out right-handed pitcher after right-handed pitcher. Feels like they've barely seen any lefties. And I looked at the Angels' percentages of plate appearances against lefties compared to the rest of the league. And as of today, about 16% of Angels' plate appearances are against left-handed pitchers, while the rest of the league, 26%. The current state of the Angels' current state versus left-handed pitching this season is not good. A 61 OPS plus, according to Baseball Reference, but they've only had 200 plate appearances against lefties this season so far. So it's a relatively small sample size. The Angels' percentages of plate appearances versus lefties match to the rest of the league. They have more than 320 plate appearances versus lefties. So John, is part of the struggle, the lefty righty issue, and the Angels not having a a very balanced lineup?
You need a true lefty. And the only true lefty they have is Nolan Schanuel. And before that, it was Mickey Moniak. Mike, like, think about Rowdy Tellez with the Mariners, right? Like, just a powerful dude. He's he's not very fast. He's not going to do a lot great on the base paths. But and before I dive into this, let me just make sure that he's a lefty, because I'm pretty sure that I saw him batting from the left side. Yeah, he's a lefty. And so and that's a dude. Like, he's a big beefy boy, right? And he's a true lefty who's gonna mash and he's gonna hit you for some slugging and whatnot. Right now he's got a 442 slugging, but look, the average isn't great, 208, and the on base isn't great, 262, but the slugging, 442.
Yeah.
And when you have a guy like that in your lineup that you can use as a threat to, get these right-handers out of the game or make the manager make a move. Cameron, you're speaking my language, bro, with all of the numbers that you dived into. And the fact is that the Angels are 16% behind the rest of the league in terms of how many plate appearances they've had versus left-handed pitching. It makes sense. And again, I think it comes down to, you have to have a true lefty. You have to have somebody like a Rowdy Tellez, not the greatest example, but at the end of the day, the Angels don't have that other than Nolan Schanuel, and he's not the typical power bat, left-handed guy that you would have. But when it comes to the issues with this lineup and the right-handed pitching on right-handed hitting, I think that speaks a lot. Do you think so, Mike?
Yeah, it makes me think, man, it would be great to have somebody like, I don't know, like Mickey Moniak in this lineup right now, right? And so I know he was let go, and I know Joe Adell's here, and I hope Mickey has a great career with the Rockies, but and Mickey had his own faults as well, but that's why the Angels went to go and get, at least were rumored to go and get, a power left-handed bat. They just never actually signed anybody this offseason.
Here's the problem with, like, the Mickey Moniak thing, though. Like, the Angels were in this place where they were like, well, we got to, if we have Mickey Moniak, we really got to start him. We got to get him out there. And I just looked at Tellez again and his number of games, and it was 29 with the Mariners so far. And so he's had 84 plate appearances. So he's gotten into that many games, but he's only had 84 plate appearances compared to, what everybody else is doing. And that's the thing, is sometimes these left-handed power bats don't necessarily have to be everyday guys. And so I with Mickey Moniak, it was tricky because they were trying to work him into the lineup all the time. And look, I know Mickey could hit for power, but there, like you said, there were a lot of other issues that were going on with him that just didn't make him a successful lefty power bat. Could
not draw a walk because he just would swing at the first pitch no matter where it was at. He had a lot of Joe Adell in him from the left-hand side. So they were a very similar type of hitter.
So if you think about it, perhaps, and this will be a situation where the Angels can add somebody at some point if they somehow climb back into a competitive record, then I would suggest that they look for that left-handed power bat. And if you go down into the minor leagues, perhaps, and I'm looking this up again. I love doing this stuff, like on the spot,
on
the fly. Nope, I was wrong. Matthew Lugo, not a left-handed batter.
Nope.
So I was looking at that, but maybe they have some options down in the minor leagues, but at the end of the day, they wanted that veteran lefty and they never got it. And so they're relying on a lot of switch hitters. And again, they're not true left-handed hitters, only hitting from the one side. Maybe Moncada, in his short time back, maybe that's his strength. And maybe we will see him a lot from the left side against these lefties. So if anything, if you take away anything right now, maybe Moncada is the most true lefty power bat that this team has right now.
Yeah. Lots of questions regarding Taylor Ward, Johnny. So Trevor Chilcote on Instagram said, how does the negative run differential reflect deeper issues with pitching and offense? And then Aaron Cantor on Instagram said, can we stop having Taylor Ward swing at every pitch down and away. If I can see it, I know other teams can see it.
Right.
And then Luco02 on Instagram said, do you think it's time to bench Taylor Ward? He looks so lost at the plate. And Steve Han7 on Instagram said, are we over Ward? I love that. 2 bases loaded strikeouts looking because he was guessing. So give me some thoughts on Taylor Ward, Johnny.
Yeah, when we talk about Taylor Ward, and we'll get to Trevor's question about negative run differential here in a second, but when we talk about Taylor Ward, the fact is for some reason, Mike, a lot of teams value him. And I think they value him for the same reason why I valued him in fantasy baseball. He hits the ball freaking hard.
Yeah.
And when it's in his swing path and when it's in his zone, he's going to do some damage. But you got to swing the bat, bro.
Right.
And that's his issue right now, is not being protective of the plate. I will admit, after he did that whole 40 pitch versus a minor leaguer before the game, he looked good up there. He was protecting the plate, he's protecting the zone and all that stuff. And then he hits that home run, but that went out the window.
Right. The next game he was
on the very next game. Yeah. It was like, that was factory reset right there. And so teams see a lot of value in Taylor Ward and what he does at the plate when he does it. And so if Taylor Ward can be more aggressive and stop swinging at pitches down and away like he did last night, like that was just an awful at bat, swinging at 2 pitches down and away, and then watching that sinker right there in the zone. It was like, there's your pitch, dude.
Yep.
Mike, I think that he is the definition of the guy we talked about the other day of, oh, I missed my pitch. I don't know what to do. What do I do now? And he can't fix that, and he can't adjust to that. But talk about a guy who needs a 2-strike approach. It's Taylor Ward. And it's like, yeah, dude, you're not going to get everything down the middle every time. And I know that you're going to miss something down the middle sometimes, but you've got to be able to make adjustments. You've got to be able to fix the situation for yourself. And you got to be able to foul off some pitches, because you're not going to get everything right in your sweet spot every single time. Mike, the question from Trevor, that was my bad. I put that in the Taylor Ward section. Does the negative run differential reflect deeper issues with pitching and offense? I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the Angels strike out a lot. That's obvious. But then not having productive outs and not having sacrifice flies, right?
Yeah, I do want to throw a curveball at you. And I think a lot of the reason why the run differential is so separated is because the Angels have had a lot of blowups this year.
That's true.
And so if you were to take out some of those blowups, I think it would give you two things. One, it would tell you that the pitching staff hasn't been that bad outside of those few blowups, which let's not excuse those.
Sure.
But 2, I think it shows why they need to have productive outs, why they need to put the bat on the ball. Because if they're striking out a lot, they're not going to score at all. But if they have productive outs, hit sacrifice flies, and move runners over, it's actually going to benefit this team. And I also think it'll benefit their home run hitting, because so many of their home runs have been solo home runs. If they're moving runners over, that could change. And I think it changes the run differential.
Yeah, you're right. That speaks a lot to their on-base percentage too, because they have had a lot of home runs and they've had a lot of solo home runs. So that also speaks to the negative run differential, speaks to the fact that nobody's getting on base ahead of the guys who are hitting home runs on this team right now.
The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night's delivering highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. So whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on all of the action than with FanDuel. They're making it really easy for you to stay in the game before tip-off and live as the game is happening. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and to win big. And if you're new to FanDuel, now's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com. You can place your first bet, $5 bet, and if it wins, you're going to get an extra $200 in bonus bets, because FanDuel is awesome. You can make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Couple more questions on this Fan Mail Friday. Anthony Mora on YouTube said, quick question, guys. When Trout comes back, do you put him back at number 2 right away? Do you put him at 4 or maybe even number 6 in the lineup? Mike, where's he going when he comes back?
I'm putting him at 3 because I like Neto and I like Shawnuel at the top of the order. And then I want somebody who can actually maybe do something with that. And I'm going to put him at 3, maybe 4, but I'm going to put him at 3 because Ward shouldn't be anywhere near the 3rd spot in the order.
Yeah, he has historically been really bad in the 3rd spot. been better in the cleanup spot, which ironically was where he was when he hit that home run on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday was not in the cleanup spot. He was number 3 and he looked awful from the third spot. And maybe that's a mentality thing, right? Maybe that's an issue there. El Gray Dad on Instagram said, do the Angels fire their hitting coach? Well, you know where we stand on that.
Yeah, we're in agreement on that. I do think that they need to do some work there. And then they probably need to also not just give the same philosophy to all of their same hitters. I did read an article the other day from the OC Register that talked about Joe Adell swinging at the first pitch and how, and you shared a stat on our show yesterday, the Angels have great stats when they're swinging at the first pitch and making good contact. And so I think that there's gray conversations, like in the weeds conversations,
which is appropriate because El Gray Dad is the one who sent in this question. Gray conversations.
Yes, I think you need to get into the weeds, some of the details that are just not black and white, and that you're making everybody a uniformed hitter. I think that the Angels need to have somebody that's going to specifically do that and not just keep saying, "Hey, just run the process and we're going to get there," because that's been annoying when we've heard that the last couple of weeks from Johnny Washington.
Here's why I know a lot of people, somebody said, why isn't Adell on that rocket ship with Detmers and Wash in our episode yesterday? Here's where I stand with Joe Adell. There is, here's what hasn't happened yet. He has not swung on those pitches to do that damage just yet. And like you said, the first pitch, he'll be able to do a lot of damage there and he could crush that. There will come a time where, and this has everything to do with Adell's patience, where pitchers will be afraid to throw him anything in the zone, and that'll boost his on-base percentage. He can get on base and start, stealing more bags and do more damage on the base paths, but he just hasn't gotten there yet. And a lot of that's on him. He swung at nothing in the strike zone Wednesday night's game against the Blue Jays, and that's his fault. And he's got to show more patience, and he's got to be able to read those pitches better. But there will come a time where pitchers will be afraid to throw anything in the zone. And so he'll see a lot more pitches out of the zone, take more walks, show more patience. And then eventually they're going to have to bring that in the zone. They can't just put you on the way that, that you could if you just showed more patience at the plate.
John Yo Soy Wan 1 on Instagram said, "Hey, if by some miracle the Angels do sell, that already does sell the team, who would be the best candidate?" John, my opinion is not a person, but a team. I think the Dodgers have proven that when you have multiple people leading the charge, you have a lot more resource. And that's what this Angels team needs, because you have an owner, isn't just the guy that has to come up with all of the details, but you have a multitude of people with a lot of resource. And some of them are like, "Hey, what if we had this advertisement?" And someone over here was like, "What if we did this with a stadium?" I think a team would be great. Joe Lacob, of course, from the Golden State Warriors is probably my favorite of all of the guys that came up in the rumor mill when the Angels were for sale.
Yeah, it would have been Joe Lacob for me too, because he, has been an Angel fan in the past. He worked at the stadium at one point as a kid, and he seems like somebody who, looking what he did, he's got a co-owner, right? With the Warriors. Yeah. Looking what they did together. They turned that franchise around. Right. And so I think that the Angels are kind of the perfect candidate for somebody like Joe Lacob to turn around. JT Hartley said, can you somehow get Artie on the show or even Trent Rush? Well, certainly we could reach out and ask, but it doesn't seem like Artie even talks to the beat writers, and they have a lot more say so than us. But Trent has actually said that he'd come on sometime. I know that he's busy with the season, but we've reached out to him. Actually reached out to him once, Mike, because it was sometime at the end of last season, because it was like a very frustrating loss. Of course, he's got to take the phone calls after and hear all of the complaints, which are valid. Yep. And I just said, "Hey, dude, like, you do a good job. Like, considering the situation that Trent is in, I have a lot of empathy for Trent, because it's like, yeah, you have to appease your bosses, but also I think Trent's just as frustrated as a fan as we are. Now, I don't think he's in the same league as like Roger Lodge in the afternoon, who puts a positive spin on everything. I think Trent tries to do his best to be real, but also wants to keep his job, right, Mike?
Yeah. I'm not opposed to a positive spin, by the way. I think that that's a great approach to life. I think it's a great approach to sports. But what I appreciate about a Trent Rush is that he does talk often about like the reality of this team, but then will say, "Hey, like, here's here's what could happen, right? And I appreciate that he has a what could happen mentality. We have the privilege of being on the Locked On Podcast Network where we could say, man, a lot of that's garbage because we don't have an owner that's like, are you saying nice things about me? Because if you're not, you're in trouble, right?
Yeah. And see, that's not a Trent problem. That's an Artie problem right there. Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. You can find the show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter, at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram, whether you're watching or listening. Come on over to today's show, get in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you. I always make the joke that you guys are in the future, so you know what happened in that Blue Jays series finale. So maybe you're celebrating, or maybe you're just as angry because they didn't get the win. But Mike, what are we doing when we come back on Monday?
Well, the Baltimore Orioles, just trying to save time, are here this weekend, and they're not good. No. So does that mean that the Angels lose a series? Well, we're going to talk about that weekend series on Monday on Locked On Angels.
Yeah, are we the get right team for the Baltimore Orioles, just trying to save time? Mike, their rotation is farts right now.
Falling off a cliff, man. 100 wins 2 years ago, 91 last year, and now they're worse than us?
Yeah, it really depends.
Somebody's in trouble.
We're gonna run into like Zach Eflin and Tomoyuki Sagano probably. I got to look at the probables, but if we have to face those two, it might be a more difficult weekend than we expect with the O's. All right, friends, thanks for being here. Until Monday's show, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Monday.
Let's get Perry Manassian on the show.
I'm sure he would. Let's try. Let's reach out.
Let's text him.
Perry, you're listening.